Right. So if you're thinking about installing a new trait, maybe it's confidence, maybe discipline, maybe staying cool under pressure. This is kind of your instruction manual for training your nervous system to accept that new reality as its default setting.
Okay, let's tackle that number first. 21 days. It's everywhere now, isn't it? Almost feels like a myth sometimes, or just, a self-help cliche.
It really does get thrown around a lot. But the sources we looked at are clearly, Maltz didn't just pull it out of thin air. It came directly from what he was seeing over and over with his patients.
So it was an empirical observation, not just a guess.
Definitely empirical. He wasn't searching for some magic number. He was just watching people recover physically and psychologically. And he noticed transformation wasn't instant, ever.
Right. There was always this delay. A consistent time period before the person's mind seemed to fully catch up and accept the new reality, whether that was a physical change or even a behavioral one.
He called it an incubation period. Right. Roughly 21 days for the psychological adjustment. Like the brain needed time to integrate the change.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Integrate the change. Almost like letting the software update install properly. And he saw it across different situations.
Can you give us some examples from his work? Where did he see this 21-day pattern showing up?
Well, the most obvious was with body image changes. Say, someone had a nose job or significant skin grafting.
Okay.
For the first few days, maybe even a week or two, they'd often feel disconnected. Like, okay, I seize my nose now, but it doesn't feel like me.
Intellectually, they get it, but emotionally or physically, it's still foreign.
Exactly. And Maltz noticed that it was consistently around that 3-week mark, about 21 days, when that feeling would shift. They'd stop feeling like they were wearing a mask and start to accept the new feature as just them. That's a really interesting distinction, seeing versus integrating.
It is. And what made it really compelling for him was seeing this time frame pop up in non-cosmetic situations too, like with amputees.
Oh, right. The phantom limb phenomenon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where someone still feels the limb that isn't there, pain, itching, just the presence of it. It's a really powerful example of the brain holding onto an old map, isn't it?
Definitely.
Maltz observed that it often took about, guess how long?
Around 21 days.
Around 21 days, yeah. For the nervous system to really update its internal body map and for those phantom sensations to significantly decrease or stop.
Okay, so that suggests it's not just about liking a new nose, it's a deeper neurological process of updating the brain's core data about reality. Deleting old info, integrating new.
Precisely. And he saw it in behavioral shifts too. He mentioned families moving to a completely new house, maybe a new city, that feeling of disorientation, being out of place.
Yeah, that takes a while to shake off.
He noticed it tended to really settle down after about, you guessed it, 21 days. It seemed to be the time needed for all the sensory input, the spatial memory, everything to adjust and accept the new place as home.
So this 21-day window for Maltz wasn't necessarily about completing the transformation, but it was the critical time needed to start consciously rebuilding the self, to get the internal map to accept the edits.
You got it. It's like the time needed for the mental stitches to take hold after the surgery. And this is crucial. It's not about just pretending for a bit.
Right, not shallow faking it.
No, it's about deliberate, consistent rehearsal, acting out the new role until your nervous system, your biology, actually accepts it as real.
Because people often hear act as if and think it means just putting on a superficial front. But Maltz was talking about something much more committed, wasn't he? Physical, psychological.
Absolutely. Fake it till you make it can sound like a one-off trick. Maltz's idea was about sustained input. You're essentially trying to gently deceive your own nervous system, repeatedly, into believing a new reality is already here by creating undeniable physical evidence through your actions. Not just saying I'm confident, but performing acts of confidence over and over. And 21 days seems to be that initial period where the brain starts going, okay, maybe this consistent input is the new truth.
It sounds like the brain just wants consistency, doesn't it? Feed it the same behavior, and eventually it adjusts the internal program, the self-image, to match the external performance.
It defaults to efficiency, right? If you do something repeatedly, the brain figures, okay, this must be important, and it starts streamlining the circuits for it. Maltz saw that if the self-image was stuck on, say, I'm a failure, the person would unconsciously create situations to prove that internal blueprint right.
Self-sabotage.
Classic self-sabotage. The 21-day action plan is designed specifically to interrupt that cycle by flooding the system with new, persistent, contradictory data.
Okay, so if the physical scalpel wasn't enough, what was Maltz's actual psychological treatment? This brings us to his famous prescription. Act as if. But like we said, it had to be behavioral, physical.
That's the absolute key. You have to understand the language your nervous system speaks. And according to Maltz, and frankly a lot of modern understanding too, it doesn't really get abstract concepts. It doesn't understand your philosophical intentions or silent promises you make to yourself.
So what does it understand?
Two things primarily: experience and motion. Action.
Why is that difference so vital? Why does our biology seem to care more about movement than, say, mantras?
Because movement and experience create reality. They generate feedback. If I sit here and tell myself, I'm brave, but then every time a challenge comes up, I physically flinch or step back.
Your body's telling a different story.
Exactly. The nervous system gets conflicting signals. And which signal does it trust? The one that has real-world consequences. The physical act of shrinking away. That action triggers fear hormones, it reinforces the avoidance pattern, and maybe people around me react differently too. They might ignore me or step over me.
And that experience locks in the belief.
You see?
I am timid.
Precisely. So when Maltz's actual surgeries didn't fix the core issue, his prescription was behavioral. Use motion, use action to generate new evidence. Undeniable proof for the nervous system.
You have to actively make the experience of being the person you want to become.
Yes. Choose actions that clash with your old self-image. And then this is the hard part. Repeat them consistently for that critical 21-day period.
And the perfect illustration of this, the one the sources really emphasize, is the story of the shy actor. Can we dig into that?
Oh, yeah. It's such a great case study because it highlights the gap between what someone can do and who they believe they are. This actor apparently was amazing on stage.
Right.
Lights up, playing a role. He was commanding, charismatic, totally engaging. But the second he stepped off stage,
Total opposite.
pathologically shy, couldn't make eye contact, rushed his words, just basic social stuff was terrifying for him.
So he clearly had the skill of confidence somewhere inside him. He could perform it, but his internal operating system kept it quarantined, only allowed on stage. His default was shy.
That's it exactly. His self-image was actively fighting the evidence of his own talent. Maltz saw the challenge wasn't teaching him confidence from scratch. It was about getting the confidence he already had to migrate from the stage into his everyday life.
So what did Maltz tell him to do for those 21 days? What were the specific actions?
The instructions were super concrete, purely behavioral. He basically said, for the next 21 days, I want you to play the role of a confident man in your real life. And it wasn't vague.
What did it involve?
Specific things like walk tall. He had to consciously adjust his posture, shoulders back, head up, look people directly in the eye, every conversation, which must have felt incredibly exposing for him.
Yeah, terrifying if you're shy.
And the third thing, speak slowly and with purpose. Force himself to counteract that anxious rush of words. Slow down. Be deliberate.
That sounds exhausting, like being on all the time and probably feeling totally fake, especially at the start.
He said it felt completely ridiculous, like he was putting on a terrible play and everyone could see through it. But this is where the feedback loop kicks in.
What happened?
People didn't react like he was a fraud. They reacted to the behavior. They saw a man walking tall, meeting their gaze, speaking deliberately, and they responded differently.
How so?
They smiled back more because he was making eye contact. They listened more attentively because he sounded like he meant what he said. They started treating him with a level of respect he just wasn't used to outside the theater.
So that's the new data. The external world starts confirming the act.
That's the validation that starts the reprogramming. The first few days, the behaviors were forced, uncomfortable, totally conscious. But as people responded well, that feeling of awkwardness started to get replaced by the positive feeling of successful social interaction, new data flooding the system.
And over the 21 days.
By the end of it, the story goes, he didn't have to force it anymore. The act had sort of fused with the person. Confidence became the new default setting neurologically. It wasn't an act. It was just him.
That's incredible. And this success story, this reprogramming, it leads right into Maltz's idea of the brain's guidance system, the servo-mechanism. We need to understand this, right? Because it explains why the behavior works so well.
The servo-mechanism is absolutely central to Maltz's whole psychological model.
Yeah.
Think of it like your brain's built-in autopilot, a goal-seeking system. It's constantly working automatically like a heat-seeking missile, or maybe a better analogy today is like a really advanced GPS.
Okay. And what's his main job?
Its primary function is to keep you on course, to maintain stability, homeostasis. It steers you towards whatever target, identity, or goal is currently locked into the system.
So if my internal GPS is set to I am disorganized,
then the servo mechanism doesn't just passively allow you to be disorganized. It actively, unconsciously guides you towards disorganized outcomes. It'll make sure you misplace the keys just before you need to leave. It'll help you procrastinate on that deadline.
Whoa. So it's actively working to keep me consistent with my self-belief, even if that belief is negative.
Exactly. It's based on cybernetics, the science of control systems, constant feedback and correction. If your core identity is unlucky or not good enough, the mechanism filters your perception. It highlights failures, dismisses successes, makes you stumble just before the finish line. all to keep your reality aligned with that internal blueprint. It actively works against you changing to maintain the status quo.
That is huge. It's not just inertia, it's an active, unconscious resistance programmed in.
It really is. And that's why the 21 days of deliberate, chosen action is so powerful. You're essentially forcing new coordinates into the GPS. You're telling the system, hey, the target destination is no longer shy actor, it's confident man.
And you keep inputting that coordinate through behavior.
Relentlessly, until the system accepts it. Once that new desired identity gets locked in because of the sheer consistency of your actions, the subconscious servo-mechanism starts doing the hard work for you. It automatically course corrects towards the new identity. Success starts feeling less like a struggle and more natural, almost accidental sometimes. So the intense willpower, the feeling of forcing it, that's mainly needed during that initial 21-day reprogramming phase.
That's the idea. That's the recalibration period. After that, if the new coordinates are locked, the system takes over a lot of the navigation. It shifts the whole thing from a constant psychological battle to more like an engineering upgrade.
Behavior is the input. The servo mechanism handles the output.
You got it. That's the core mechanism Maltz described.
Okay, this is fascinating. Maltz came up with this based on observation decades ago. How does it stack up against what we know now about the brain, about neuroscience? Does this 21-day idea map onto actual physical changes?
It really does, remarkably well, which is why his work still feels relevant. His mental surgery concept aligns almost perfectly with what we now call neuroplasticity.
The brain changing itself.
Yeah, the brain's ability to physically reorganize its structure and function based on experience. It's not fixed after childhood. And the engine driving that change, especially through the kind of behavioral repetition Maltz prescribed, is a principle called Hebbian learning. Ah, the classic. Neurons that fire together, wire together. We hear it all the time, but what does it actually mean physically? What's happening in the brain during those 21 days of, say, acting confident?
It means you're literally strengthening the connections between specific brain cells. Every time you think a thought, feel an emotion, or especially perform an action, a specific neural circuit gets activated, a pathway lights up.
Okay.
When you repeat that action, you use that same pathway again and again. And the more you use it, the stronger, faster, and more efficient that connection becomes.
So it's not just a concept, it's like paving a road in the brain.
That's a perfect analogy. Imagine trying to walk through a dense forest the first time. It's hard work, pushing branches aside, watching your step. But if you walk that exact same path every single day for 3 weeks...
It becomes a clear, easy trail.
Exactly. Neurologically, this involves changes at the synapse. The connection points between neurons become denser, more reliable. And potentially a process called myelination kicks in.
Myelination?
Yeah, where a fatty sheath, myelin, wraps around the axon, the wire part of the neuron. Myelin is like insulation on an electrical cable. It drastically speeds up the signal transmission along that pathway.
Wow. So rehearsing an action literally makes the brain circuit for that action faster and more automatic. If I spend 3 weeks deliberately acting decisively, making quick choices on small things, I'm physically strengthening the decisiveness circuit.
You're building mental muscle memory? The brain optimizes for what you repeatedly do. Act decisively, and decisiveness becomes reflexive. Hesitate constantly, and hesitation becomes the brain's default easy path. It just wants to be efficient at whatever you practice.
Which is why those small, consistent acts are so important. They're the reps that build that neural pathway.
Tiny inputs, laying the groundwork for faster, more efficient circuitry later.
Okay, this helps bridge Maltz's 21 days with some modern habit research. You often hear longer numbers now, right? Like, doesn't science say it takes more like 66 days to form a habit?
That's a really important clarification, and the sources address it well. Research, like that famous study from University College London, looked at how long it took for various new behaviors, drinking water, going for a run, to feel automatic, effortless.
They found.
On average, it took about 66 days for the habit to reach that point of automaticity where you just do it without really thinking.
So 66 days for full saturation, full automation.
Correct. But the 21-day period Maltz focused on, that seems to be the crucial initial phase. It's the period of, let's call it, psychological acceptance and initial pathway formation.
Buy-in period.
Kind of. In those first 3 weeks, the basic neural pathway gets laid down. The brain starts to accept the possibility of this new self-concept. The resistance from the old pathways starts to weaken.
It's like the time needed for the surgical stitches to actually hold, even if the full healing takes longer. If you can get through the discomfort and perceived fakeness of those first 21 days, you've basically persuaded your nervous system to take the new direction seriously.
You've laid the foundation, yeah. Think of 21 days as maybe the time needed for the nervous system to stop actively fighting the new reality so hard. The 66 days might be closer to the time needed to fully integrate and myelinate it, making it super fast and unconscious, but you need that initial 21-day push to get the process going.
And is there any hard evidence of the brain adapting significantly within that 21-day window, outside of just habit formation?
Absolutely. The sources point to a really striking example from NASA astronaut training.
Oh, what did they do?
It provides clear proof of rapid neuroplasticity. In some very specific, intense training programs, recruits wore special goggles. These goggles would flip their vision, making the entire world appear upside down, or maybe mirrored.
Okay, that sounds incredibly disorienting. Your brain's getting input that completely contradicts everything it knows about the world.
Totally. Logically, you'd think they'd just stay confused and nauseous indefinitely. And they were at first. Awful nausea, couldn't do basic tasks. But the brain craves stability, right? It wants to make sense of the input.
So what happened?
After a period of continuous wear consistently reported to be around the 3-week, 21-day mark, something amazing occurred. For many participants, their brain spontaneously adapted. It flipped the image back internally.
Wait, really? Even with the goggles still on?
Even with the goggles physically inverting the light, the brain, specifically the visual cortex, essentially reprogrammed itself to reinterpret the incoming signal so the world appeared normal again. It prioritized perceived stability over the raw data.
That's mind-blowing. It shows the brain can literally rewrite its reality processing within about 3 weeks if the input is consistent and demanding enough.
Exactly. It's powerful evidence of the nervous system's capacity to adjust. And the whole point of Maltz's mental surgery is to leverage that same mechanism for your identity. You're intentionally feeding your brain consistent behavioral input, I am acting courageous, that contradicts the old reality, I feel fear, forcing it to eventually flip its internal perception to match the persistent actions.
Forcing a cognitive flip through behavior. Wow. Okay, so this really drives home the idea that identity isn't some fixed thing we're stuck with. It's more like it's dynamic. It's constantly being shaped by this loop, right, between how we act and how the world responds.
That's absolutely the core of it. That loop is why Maltz shifted focus from the face to the self-image. It's self-reinforcing. Act hesitant, the world reflects back impatience or dismissal, which confirms your belief you're inept.
Right.
Act confident, the world often responds with respect or cooperation, which validates the confident behavior. So the key to changing yourself is figuring out how to consciously inject new positive input into your side of that loop.
But what if you're starting out feeling like you have nothing? Like if I want to be seen as disciplined, but I don't have big achievements yet to point to, how do you kickstart that positive loop when there's no external validation coming back initially?
Great question. And that's precisely why Maltz's prescription is behavioral. If you feel you lack external proof, the answer, according to this framework, is to generate the experience internally through action, regardless of the immediate outcome.
Meaning?
Initially, your brain isn't necessarily logging, did I get a promotion? It's logging, did I perform the action associated with discipline? The motion, the commitment itself, is the primary input at first.
Like the flight simulator idea. The pilot isn't really flying, but their nervous system is still learning the feel of it, the stress, the decisions, the movements.
Exactly. You are training your nervous system what it feels like to be this desired person, the disciplined person, the calm person, whatever it is. So if disciplined is the goal, you start the 21 days by doing disciplined things, even tiny ones. The act itself is the simulation.
And the feedback.
The initial positive feedback is internal. It's the feeling of accomplishment after you do the small act, the mini rush of competence. That counts as positive data for your nervous system, even if nobody else notices or applauds.
Okay, that connects to the idea of persistence over perfection, especially when you're fighting those old negative stories. Like you're trying to build discipline, you skip one workout, and the old voice instantly says, see, lazy, told you so.
Oh, that old identity is waiting for failure. It wants to pull you back into the familiar comfort zone. Maltz would say the critical error isn't missing the workout itself. The error is letting that one slip up reinforce the old story. That's where you let the mental stitches unravel.
So the countermove is immediate corrective action. Even if you feel like a failure.
You have to flood the system with new signals. Overwhelm that one negative data point with lots of small positive ones. Missed the big workout. Okay, immediately do something small that aligns with disciplined.
Like what?
For those 21 days, focus on tiny, undeniable wins. Wake up at the exact set time. Make your bed perfectly. Write just one single paragraph in a journal if that's your goal. These things are objective. You either did them or you didn't. They provide concrete proof you are performing the role.
And the beauty is, the small act is easier to do when you feel defeated. It guarantees a win.
Exactly. And every win, no matter how small, Maltz would say, is like another stitch holding the new self-image together. The sheer volume of these small, positive data points starts to drown out the occasional failure. It rewrites the internal argument from "I failed" to "I did A, B, C, and D successfully today."
You see this pattern really amplified in someone like Muhammad Ali, right? His famous declarations weren't just trash talk.
Viewed through this lens, they were absolutely neurological programming. I am greatest. He wasn't just telling his opponents, he was telling his own servo-mechanism, locking in the target identity.
And then his actions backed it up. The insane training, the wins.
That was the crucial feedback loop. His relentless training, his willingness to act boldly, and the resulting victories provided a massive, undeniable stream of evidence validating the declaration. He acted as if he was already the greatest, and his consistent behavior forced reality and people's perception to align with that performance.
That's the accelerator effect. Consistent, aligned behavior makes the world respond differently, which then solidifies the new identity internally. The simulation becomes real.
That's the process in action.
Okay, the theory sounds solid, maybe even elegant. But putting it into practice, that's where most people hit a wall, right? That feeling of resistance.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just common. It's basically guaranteed. Anyone who's tried to change a significant behavior knows this feeling. And Maltz actually pinpointed when it tends to hit hardest.
When is that?
Often right in the middle. Around days 10 to 15 of the 21-day period, that's when the initial enthusiasm might wear off and the sheer effort feels, well, fake, forced, deeply uncomfortable.
Why then?
Because the old identity, the self-image you're trying to operate on and dismantle, it starts fighting back hard. It uses your own ego against you. It whispers doubts. This is silly. You feel ridiculous doing this. It's obviously not working.
It's the old self trying to drag you back to what's familiar, even if it's not helpful.
Exactly. Familiarity feels safe, even if it's unproductive. And Maltz had a really interesting perspective on how to interpret this internal struggle. He actually compared that feeling of doubt and difficulty to post-surgical pain.
Huh, how so?
He said it's not a sign that the surgery failed. It's a sign that healing is happening, that change is actively underway. The discomfort, the feeling of fakeness, is evidence that the old identity is being challenged and is putting up its final resistance. It's a sign something is actually shifting beneath the surface.
That's a powerful reframe. So if you feel really awkward or self-conscious doing the new behavior around day 12, that's not proof it's wrong for you.
It's a potentially proof that the internal rewiring is happening. The old circuits are protesting. Maltz stressed that during these 21 days, you have to kind of maintain faith in the process itself precisely because it's an invisible operation.
You can't see it happening.
Right. You don't see your bones knitting under a cast. You trust the process. Similarly, you can't directly observe your self-image rebuilding under the surface of your conscious awareness. Your job, he said, is just to keep performing the role. Focus on the action, not the internal commentary.
Okay, but how do you manage that resistance when it feels overwhelming? When day 14 hits and 21 days feels like an eternity away?
The key strategy seems to be prioritizing consistency over magnitude. When that resistance is screaming, when doing the full hour-long practice or the big project step feels impossible, don't just quit.
Do what instead?
Dramatically shrink the scope of the behavior, but do not break the chain. Keep the daily signal going.
So you're keeping the neurological signal alive, even if the effort level drops.
Precisely. Can't manage the 5-mile run? Fine, run for 5 minutes. Can't write the whole chapter? Write one good sentence. The goal is to send that unbroken message to the servo-mechanism. We are still this new person today. We showed up.
And crucially, it prevents the old identity from claiming victory.
Yes. By doing the tiny version, you log another successful day for the new identity. You avoid feeding the old narrative of, see, I failed, I quit. You maintain momentum, however small.
This hidden internal process also explains why just repeating affirmations often doesn't work if the behavior doesn't match, doesn't it?
That's probably the single biggest pitfall for so many self-help attempts. You stand in front of the mirror saying, I am confident, I am powerful.
But then you go to a meeting and
you slouch, you avoid eye contact, you let others talk over you, you rush your words. You're sending your nervous system two completely opposite messages.
it has to choose one.
And which one wins? The one with physical proof, the one generating real-world feedback and neurochemical responses. Behavior trumps words every time. The subconscious mind, Maltz argued, is literal. It understands motion, not wishful thinking. If your actions scream timid while your words whisper brave, the timid behavior and the fear hormones it generates dominate. The affirmation gets discarded as noise. The brain sees the contradiction and sticks with the proven behavioral pattern.
So for an affirmation to have any teeth, it needs to be immediately followed by or paired with some corresponding action, even a tiny one.
Infinitely more powerful that way. Saying, I am confident, while deliberately straightening your posture and holding eye contact for just 10 seconds in a conversation, that sends an aligned signal. That starts to lock things in.
Word and motion together.
They have to align, especially during that critical 21-day training period. You're forcing that alignment until the new motion becomes automatic, until it doesn't require conscious effort anymore. That feeling of fakeness, the resistance, that's the necessary friction of the old identity fighting for its life. The only effective response is more behavior, however small.
So transformation isn't pretending, it's rehearsing. Rehearsing so thoroughly that the brain's actual wiring, its fundamental sense of this is who I am, gets physically rewritten. The simulation becomes the self.
That's the goal of the 21-day mental surgery.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this dive really confirms that Maltz's 21-day idea wasn't just a random number. It seems grounded in how our brains actually adapt. In these physiological and neurological windows, it's like a structured way to tap into our own neuroplasticity.
Exactly. And for anyone listening who wants to actually try this to perform their own mental surgery, Maltz left a pretty clear, very focused prescription for how to approach it. The power is really in its simplicity and its focus.
All right, let's break down those steps. What's the actionable plan for someone listening right now, focusing on the process, not just the outcome?
Okay, step one is absolute laser focus. You have to pick one quality, just one. The trait you want to install. Remember, the servo-mechanism needs clear coordinates. Don't try to become, confident and disciplined and calm all at the same time. That's too much noise.
Pick one target. Calm under pressure, or a decisive person, or someone who finishes things.
Right. Focus gives the scalpel its precision. Trying to do too much just confuses the system, and it'll likely default back to the old programming. So one trait, that's step one.
Makes sense. What's step two?
Step two is the core engine. Act as if you already embody that quality every single day for 21 consecutive days. You have to generate the necessary experiences. If your chosen trait is calm, then every time stress pops up during those 21 days, you consciously perform calm behaviors.
Like what specifically?
Maybe you deliberately pause for 2 seconds before reacting. You consciously take a deep breath. You modulate your tone of voice to be steady. You keep your body language open instead of closing up. You physically perform the role of calm person consistently.
You're feeding the nervous system that steady stream of objective proof through action. Okay, what about the self-doubt, the inner critic? That leads to the third step, which sounds like maybe the hardest one.
It often is. Step three. Do not analyze, judge, or evaluate your own performance during the 21 days. Just keep performing the role. Your ego, your inner critic, will desperately want to score your performance. Oh, that pause felt awkward, or I didn't sound convincing enough there.
Yeah, that voice is loud.
Maltz insisted you have to ignore it. Trust the invisible operation. You can't properly judge how well the new self-image is integrating while the surgery is still in progress. Every single time you perform the chosen action, regardless of how smooth or awkward it felt emotionally, counts as a successful repetition, a successful stitch. You are logging behavior, not feelings or subjective ratings.
So it's really about committing to the daily motion and trusting that the rewiring, the Hebbian learning, is happening beneath the surface because you're providing the consistent input it needs.
That's the essence of it. Transformation here isn't about talking yourself into change. It's about training your nervous system into it. And the 21-day structure provides that dedicated operating table time, giving the brain a sufficient window to weaken the old pathways and start accepting the new identity as a viable default.
And then, ideally, by the end of that period, or maybe sometime after, the new behavior starts to feel less like an act.
Exactly. The person who is pathologically shy might find themselves making eye contact without even thinking about it. The person aiming for discipline might just automatically make the bed perfectly before consciously registering it. The goal isn't just to feel different temporarily. It's for the new trait to become so integrated into your subconscious guidance system, so wired into your brain that it starts happening naturally. Reality, including external success, eventually starts to catch up with the sustained rehearsal. Hashtag outro.
Well, this deep dive into Maltz and neuroplasticity really underscores a powerful idea. The most impactful surgery might not be on our faces or bodies, but on our internal self-image.
And behavior-consistent, deliberate action repeated over that critical initial period, roughly 21 days, seems to be the key input signal required for that internal operation.
The big takeaway feels pretty clear. Your self-image isn't set in stone. It's workable material. You hold the scalpel, in a sense. And that 21-day time frame is like the minimum incubation period your brain needs to start accepting the new reality you choose to perform.
You are the surgeon, yes. And the consistent action is the procedure.
So as we wrap up and you think about this idea that your environment eventually has to mirror your consistent behavior, here's a final thought to mull over. If you were to pick just one quality, one trait you genuinely admire and want to lock into your own guidance system, what's the one small, undeniable behavioral act you could perform today? Right now. Something to start forcing the world and your own brain to reflect the person you intend to be by day 21.
Start laying down that new pathway, even just the first step.
We'll leave you with that thought. Until next time on The Deep Dive.